As extreme as it may sound, I have memories of consciousness in the womb and have traumatic memories of how I had to learn to deal with my twin passing on before birth. Throughout my childhood, I had severe and epic visions ahead of many parts of my life, including seeing into world events. It's a very strange experience to see and feel ahead into moments of your life and be traumatized by what you see, and later in life, get to that moment while you're experiencing it again and realizing you are in the exact moment you saw through. Sometimes it's like your soul is seeing directly through your eyes in that moment, or times where it's like you're seeing and experiencing from beyond your body in that moment. Other times, I've been laying on a therapy table experiencing a profound experience of Reiki, and then suddenly seeing the spirit of my child self standing there observing it. All that adds an energetic math of energy threads we can get lost in, or see beyond, or even gain from the multidimensional insights of it. To me, it's very strange to live a life that if you speak about it, some people have so much cognitive dissonance that to them, you have to be crazy or unbalanced. Or others will try to put you on some pedestal so later they can knock you off of it when they threaten their own sense of identity with it. I'm learning to come forward into the space of my life anyhow and finally live more freely. I spent too much of the last 60 years not being more fully present in my life due to how others would react to me. As I've said before, as a small child, I saw into many parts of my life and world events I would live through ahead in psychic visions. I lived through those times, and I've had moments where in split seconds, as I'm living through the moment I was seeing into as a child, I'm realizing that that was the second I saw into and the things I saw and felt, and I was also being conscious of the state of ego I was seeing and feeling into at that moment in my reaction or response to it as a child. I've had times where I realized when I was going through certain experiences that as a child, certain fears had me thinking certain things about those moments. But as I lived through them, I saw them with a much wider perspective and have learned much more from that. And as well, found certain difficult moments that were indeed difficult to be pretty funny when I was able to see them from both perspectives and know that I'm okay anyhow, and that my life is much bigger than my experiences. I'm not my experiences, I am the being experiencing them. As an adult, I can sit with my therapy clients as an empathic therapist and have numbers come to me, and I realize I'm seeing into the ego states of certain ages of the client. Those numbers are all around the client at times, and then I realize that those are detached spirits of the client. And oftentimes they might be playing on the floor or somewhere in the room, and when they realize that I'm actually seeing them and I'm recognizing them, they will start communicating with me, and sometimes they'll even come over and sit on my lap, and they start to tell me about the horrors that they've experienced in their life. During the therapy session, as it goes deeper, and I bring up those ages, and I hear validation of the things, the detached states of their spirits are telling me, those little child portions of them go and sit on their laps and grow up and transcend to the other states of ego that the client has around them. I question if my abilities to do that have to do with my abilities as a child to see through many of my own states of ego that I would later have and have to process and transcend through. Oftentimes, as well, many of our abilities in life come from our past life abilities. If you believe in past lives, this is a conversation that can go much deeper. I was born in 1964, August 8th, and I remember watching the moon landing vividly in 1969 at 5 years old on a little black and white TV that my father borrowed for the event. Vividly, I say, due to the fact I got in trouble while we were watching it. I kept telling my family about how in the future, people would think we never went to the moon and that we were watching was fake. At that point, I didn't know if it was fake or not. I just knew that in the future, there would be an uproar with people when you mentioned the moon landing. And I'm sure many people listening to what I'm saying right now have probably reacted off of what I was going to say and wondering where I was going to go with this. So I got in trouble often as a kid due to what would come out of my mouth. In fact, when I became flustered, I would drop into a deep Scottish brogue. It was a side effect from 2 lives I have seen through much of this current life as if they were mine. I've had so many epic and extreme experiences in this life that I hid much of it from others for most of my life. Due to the fact I knew they couldn't handle it, and I would be made fun of and have major issues from others if I talked, including being in danger from others due to the extreme experiences I had. As a small child, I saw that when I was 19, I would be put in a mental hospital for 3 months by a family member because they thought I was crazy and wouldn't know how to deal with the reality that I had just had a massive vision and I was trying to process the realities of it. I've lived through all of that and even lived through the epic experiences I had that I saw ahead of in that vision at 19. I lived much of my younger life struggling to just survive into the next day. The vision at 19 was like an NDE, a near-death experience in a way, since I left my body and went to a higher dimension and spoke with someone there, and in the process of all of that, I saw through time and space into what would be my future life. I had the vision because I was deep in prayer and asking God questions relating to my visions and trauma from childhood, and how and why I was dealing with that, and what I was dealing with, and how I would overcome it all. As I exploded upwards into the heavens, I could hear house alarms and possibly car alarms going off in the neighborhood. It was if, energetically, I set it all off. It seemed as if, at the same time, I was throwing off all the pain of my questions upwards to God, and all the answers came within the questions within me at the same time. It was multidimensional. It was like a fountain of ultraviolet light. As I processed all the answers, I also knew at the same time that when I came back to my body, I would not be able to handle, digest, and bring back the answers with me at that time. I saw what was coming in my life, including that I would be put into a mental hospital. Towards the end of the experience of it, I saw into the future and basically remote viewed and saw someone that I knew I was going to meet in the future, claiming that he was upset and didn't seem to believe in God anymore because his sister had just died. She was pregnant, but the baby survived. I stated that I knew I was supposed to meet him. Since I channeled that, I would know him later in life when I was a small child, and I needed to go back for him. It was a very curious way that I channeled him due to his name. I heard the voice that was previously speaking ask, to who I don't know, how is he able to do what he is doing? And then I heard much more. I was conscious of part of the way in coming back through the realms of spirit, and even encountered my future friend's sister as she was moving upwards into the realms of spirit and had a quick exchange with her. I never met her in physical life. When I came back into my body, I was extremely confused as I tried to process everything that happened and what I partially remembered, but was quickly forgetting in what was coming at me in life. I was 19. Many years later in life, I met that friend I knew since childhood I would meet later in life. When I met him, it was 3 months after his sister had passed on, though somehow at 19, I encountered her as she seemingly passed over. I say all this because with all the literally epic experiences I have had, I'm not sure how I feel about the concept of alternate universes when I have seen so deeply through time and space of this apparent one. Many years back, I met the rock star Prince. It's a long story, but I told him he would die in an elevator if he continued to do drugs. Many years later, he died that way. I knew from childhood I would meet him in the future. and I would warn him of that. I knew that even before he became famous and was a rock star. I have seen into what appear to be several of my past lives. Several of them are famous historical figures. As a child, I suffered severe night terrors for a period of time due to seeing and intensely feeling one of those lives. A Scottish man who died on a battlefield. I know his name and many things about him, and I've been able to confirm in time due to the fact he is in the history books. I can go to places he lived and have memories and feelings flood back of him. I know things that as Keith wouldn't have a way to know other than being those people in other lives. Or is it something else? Am I learning history through seeing into the lives of others? But if that's the case, why do those lives feel so much like mine and are entwined within my own difficulties and abilities in this life? Once again, I say all this because now at 60, I dare to speak my truths, since so many others are coming forward speaking as well. I am physically safer than I've ever been in this lifetime. With all these experiences that I've had, it makes it difficult to grasp certain things that some people are saying. I'm hearing people talk about quantum jumping into alternate universes, and the Earth is splitting. And some people will go to the new Earth, and some people won't exist anymore, and they will have never existed to begin with. And so I may go into that more later in another video. So it seems some are now saying certain people will be able to jump to another Earth, and everyone that doesn't go will have never existed. Will have never existed? Or will it not be remembered by those who jump and somehow acquire spiritual dementia due to the jump? Does one's sense of reality create reality as many people believe? Or does it create their sense of reality, but reality in all souls would still exist regardless to another sense of reality or experiences of reality? Reality is multidimensional, and I do believe that we co-create our reality. It would take a pretty big ego and maybe the true definition of a warlock to negate souls of others so that they never existed to begin with. I feel much clarification on all this needs to be addressed for many people not able to see into the depths of it. And this is something in future videos that I feel like I probably need to address or would like to hear other people's thoughts on. I think there really needs to be deep discussion on this because I'm hearing many people talk about their concept of what this means. And it honestly really does feel like some sort of spiritual dementia and not actually being aware of their spirits and their souls, but being more locked into a concept of their own creation, which might not actually be reality. Might seem or be a sense of reality, but is it reality? When I was a toddler, I thought everyone heard voices in their heads, and I saw things I would later come to know as disembodied spirits. I thought everyone could see those scary creatures attached to some people, and I was very disturbed that no one was saying anything about them and acting normal. As I grew up, I learned those entities were attached to people. I learned speaking to the monsters that were attached to other people was not a smart idea. Speaking to them opened to an energetic channel to them and allowed the monsters, so to speak, to know you saw them. I had some very weird experiences as a child as the adults around me freaked out because I was freaking out over monsters they didn't know were actually there. When a little kid tells you they're afraid of the monsters, they might be telling you about something you can't sense. When I became older, I learned that those monsters had no control over us if we didn't fear them. We have the actual power to summon enough light that they would have to transcend to light if they dared getting close to us. I think we need to pay more attention to the narrative of discourse in society and normalize things that are real, which many people claim are not real because they lack the experience of them. Some people will call me crazy for saying all this because they lack the experience of it, and thus they believe they know what they're talking about, even though they don't have any experience in this topic. Disembodied spirits are real. Some people are actually able to communicate with them. And yes, some people are unbalanced and hear voices in their head that really are not there. Both of those things can be true. Discernment is crucial in consciousness. We need to stop dismissing reality and start communicating more clearly. Negating our voices because other people can't handle processing truth that is bigger than their cognitive dissonance knows how to handle is not healthy for anyone. Lately, I've been having this strange experience with seeing the subscriber numbers of my YouTube channel ahead as they climb. When I sit and look at my analytics page to see how many views and subscribers and all the intensely interesting information that is constantly changing, I have this curious experience of seeing and feeling these energy bursts and then numbers. I literally will feel a burst of energy and there's numbers within the energy. It's like pockets of energy that feel like numbers. I end up distinguishing a series of number changes from the level and frequency of energy I feel of how the numbers will play out over the next few days or week, and sometimes into the next couple weeks. After a couple months of experiencing it happening, I just can't blow it off as coincidence. There's an alignment at energy that seems to be going with the experience. And when I check the site, the subscriber number is what I saw it would be next. Or it literally switches and goes higher right as I sit there for a couple seconds. I can feel the slowed down energy ahead if the number's not going to change for a day or several hours. And I can feel more of a burst of energy when I sense and see a number ahead that is several numbers higher. Why do I say this? Because energy, the cosmos, what we are feeling is all a form of numbers and maths. Numbers and maths themselves are a rather curious thing to me as it is. I wasn't really good with math growing up in school, and I often wonder if it has something to do with how the math of this lifetime is taught versus maths from other lifetimes that I see through and experience as my former lives, or see through as whatever lives that they might be or what they mean to me. The maths of a Hebrew scholar, for example, and I do see into a life of being a Hebrew, would be vastly different than the maths of someone born into a culture that has been entrained away from their senses and thus their connections to the math of the cosmos, the universe. The energy that, if we're open spiritually, we can feel. The abilities to truly communicate with oneself, never mind others with that culture, or even those from other cultures, is deeply at risk in cultures entrained away from their soul's connection. For those unaware, the Hebrew language is literally based within math. So to experience an energy with these numbers could be fascinating if I didn't just put that in a place of observance. The last sentence is saying much more than some might casually be able to realize. The word fascinating can be a very dangerous word if you are truly subjugated by it. The experience of this often has me thinking of how I see numbers when I'm around people at times, especially if I'm in a situation where the person is a client and I'm holding space to see them. I do my best not to look into people's energies unless I have permission from them, and it is in a healthy setting with proper boundaries for the both of us. Proper boundaries for me also means it's a situation that the person isn't going to suck the life out of me or abuse me in the process. Some people literally know no better. When I see those numbers around people, it normally is starting of a process where I can literally see and interact with the person's detached former states of egos, as I've said before, that are still with them and have yet to grow up and transcend with them. People tend to be multifaceted in their spirits and much more multidimensional than they physically may seem when we fail to truly see them. Parts of society seem to be entraining people to not actually see others. Yes, boundaries and respect are critical, and we shouldn't go investigating into people just because we may be able to. Personally, I think society could learn to see itself in others if more people learn to see themselves and see from the higher dimensional planes of their soul through their own emissions of spirit into and transcending past their physical projections they cast through times and space. I'm very thankful for those of you who have chosen to take the time and focus to listen to the things I say here. In the future, I would like to have some of you on this show with me discussing things you have experienced in your own life that are bigger than the current narrative of society openly discusses. This is the way we raise the narrative and allow others silently going through these things to realize they are not alone in all of this.